Our mission is to nucleate and nurture world-leading inventive enterprises that are based out of India, but has a strong potential for solving some of the global challenges, but only with science and engineering-led intervention. We are very happy to support startups that are developing solutions that are highly know-how driven and from the foresights of the research-oriented science and engineering. And from the last 18 years, we have been helping startups developing clusters around healthcare, rehabilitation, energy, environment, engineering, automation, agriculture, and nutrition. Very quickly, these are examples of the startups which can give you a sense of the background and the sector that they're working on. There are companies working on circular economy where organic waste to bio-CNG conversion. There are companies into therapeutic solution. There are companies into diagnostic solution. You can see CDSCO, circulating tumor cell for cancer detection. There are medical devices, hand defibrillators, spinal implants, modeling simulation. There are software, automation, IoT, etc. And agrobiologicals, the agri sector as well. Very quickly, about 800 plus startup teams we have supported so far via various programs, and 200 plus companies have been operating from the campus as resident incubating. We have a very able, strong team of 70 people managing all different and unique facilities in order to support these startups. Very inclusive environment. We have about 27% of all founders women, close to 20% are completely women driven. Startups come with the high pedigree of their professional and academic background, and more than 800 crores of risk capital in funds, grants, investment being raised, 2,000 crores of revenue being generated. And this is a complete ecosystem that we are supporting, which includes of starting with mentoring to funding to space to set up your R&D bases to different kind of partnerships. The second row of facilities are all physical, unique, state-of-the-art facilities to manage your POC development, prototyping, analytical testing, regulatory testing, tech transfer, IP, and also you get to chance to be part of large national programs through Venture Center. And these are the clusters of our recent graduates and our incubated startups here. You can see 56% are into health, which is around medical devices, diagnostics, therapeutic. There are energy, environment, agro-nutrition, engineering, automation, and some startups which are providing services in terms of CA, legal, finance to all these companies. And all these startups are basically working on very crucial domains and know-how driven solutions to be able to solve the bigger problems that exist not only in country but across the globe. We are present in 22 states via our mentees, but our physical location is only in Pune. We are actually led by very marquee people in our board, where it is chaired by Dr. Ashish Lele, and their representation from government, academia, entrepreneurship, investment, etc. And we are supported by different government organizations. The logos are mentioned here, as well as ably supported by several corporates, which are supporting us through CSR and several other grants. So with this, I would like to stop here. These are our facility pictures. Any of you are interested to visit the Venture Center, you are welcome to do so. And with this brief introduction, I would now stop Venture Center's presentation. Okay. So now coming back to today's talk, as I mentioned, we have with us Mr. Chandrashekar Kupperi, who is the General Partner, Peaceful Progress Fund, and founder, ANOVA Corporate Services. By the way of introduction, let me also briefly mention about him that he is a seasoned finance professional with over 2 decades of experience in merger acquisition, fundraising, strategic financial advisory. He has led 11 plus acquisitions, 4 divestments, several restructuring transactions across North America, Europe, and India. As a founder of ANOVA Corporate Services, he has facilitated notable deals, including divestments to global companies like Nippon Paints and Oyo Rooms. An active angel investor with 30 plus startup investments, Chandrashekar also serves as the general partner at Peaceful Progress Fund, which is a SEBI-registered angel VC fund with investments in 21 startups. He is a chartered accountant, cost accountant, and a company secretary with accolades such as the Rashtriya Udyog Ratna Award and recognition for excellence in cost management. He holds an MBA and has completed senior management certification program from IIM Calcutta. With this very brief introduction, I welcome you, Chandrashekar. Thank you so much for taking out time from the event that you're already there. I understand today everywhere there is something or the other happening to celebrate the spirit of entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for connecting with us. So I would request the audience to take the full opportunity of this and please put together your questions or your make it interactive as much possible with your comments in the chat box. And we would be taking them up at appropriate time and get them discussed with Chandrashekar. So with this, over to you, Chandrashekar. You can start your presentation. If you have any brief comments on that, we'll be happy to have that, hear that as well.
First of all, thank you so much. What a privilege even being here. Huge gratitude to Venture Center. Soma, a huge thanks to you for even inviting me. I mean, the amount of work that Venture Center is doing, I think it's a great privilege for all of us. And on this special day, let me wish you all a very happy National Startup Day. What a day to begin, about a subject on fundraise. So without, spending too much time in terms of, what this startup day is about, let's focus in terms of what fundraise is all about, because end of the day, I always say that vitamin M is very important for the growth of any startup. Because I'm an investor, thanks for also, making the topic, in a way that it is practical for all of us. So this is just my learnings. A very, very happy afternoon to all of you. Good afternoon to all of you. This is just my learnings. So feel free to ask your questions, once I finish my presentation. Just follow me the next 45 minutes, and then we are open for Q&A. So what is the beauty about this topic? I think whenever it comes to the world of startup, it begins with an idea. Kya idea, Sirji? I think that's how, every startup, begins their journey. And once the idea is there, immediately the thinking is, okay, the idea will lead me to something called money. The money can come from my friends and family, could be an angel, could be a venture capital. Probably one day I'll even have the IPO dream. But sorry to say, my dear friends, wo galat hai. It's not right. An idea does not lead to money. I'll repeat that. An idea does not lead to money. Why am I saying this? I saw the slide of Venture Center, and one thing I picked up there, what a privilege. It said 85% of the startups still alive. I think it's a matter of great privilege to know that, startups are able to continue their journey, because we know that 1 out of 10 startups, they fail by the 5th or the 6th year. So if the startup should not fail, what is the mantra? It's always about good idea plus, plus, plus. Look at the word. It's called execution. जब ये होता है तब पैसा मिलता है. It's idea, a good idea, plus execution that leads to money. And of course, to get a good idea, we need a lot of ideas. It is said that we get 60,000 thoughts a day. 90% are similar, but at least 10% are different. And therefore, my only request is, guys, think of a better idea. Think of the best idea, but don't stop there. You have to get into something called, how do I implement it? How do I execute it? And then I think the magic is beautiful. Let me quote what Steve Jobs said, because when I read it, it got just etched into my system. Steve Jobs beautifully said, to me, ideas are worthless unless executed. I'll repeat that. To me, ideas are worthless unless executed. And then he said, execution is worth millions. Ho gaya. Full stop, huh? Execution is worth millions. I always tell the founders whenever I meet them, it is not in the power of idea that success lies. It is always in the power of your execution. Aapka execution tenacity kitna hai? Can you believe that that idea could be converted into an implementable business? Then फायदा है. अरे अब क्या हुआ? अभी अभी मैंने बोला आइडिया अच्छा है, plus execution should lead to money. No, guys. One more catch. What is the catch? It is not the idea, my dear friends. It is the hypothesis. It is hypothesis plus your execution capability that will lead to money. What am I even talking about? What is the difference between idea and hypothesis? ये क्या है? क्या difference है इसमें? Simply said, a hypothesis is an idea that can be, very important word, tested. Can you test what you're thinking? Thoughts become things. But only question is, can I even test my thoughts? मेरे thinking में दम है क्या? You have to test it, because an idea is simply a proposal. It's just a suggestion. But hypothesis is all about specifics. How clear you are about why it should work. That clarity is very, very important. I used to work with Ritesh Agarwal because I also run another business called ANOVA. I'm an entrepreneur myself. And one of the best things that I heard from Ritesh was, he said, it is extremely important to build something that 100 people absolutely love using, rather than 1,000 people would just kind of like. Your Facebook likes है ना, अपना LinkedIn likes है ना, we simply like, कोई फायदा नहीं है. You know what Ritesh Agarwal said? He said it is extremely important to build something that 100 people absolutely love using rather than 1,000 people simply liking. Exactly this hypothesis means the same. Can you test it with few people? Can you find out what is the feedback that I'm getting from them? Can I become better in terms of what I'm learning from them? So what I'm telling you is that be hypothesis driven plus their execution, jarur paisa aayega, because it is not simply idea. What I'm trying to tell you is that you have an idea, ensure that that idea can become a hypothesis, which means you have to test the idea. A fact has to be established. Then you will know ये hypothesis prove हो सकता है कि नहीं prove हो सकता है. And once it is proven, oh, trust me, money will chase you. What I'm trying to tell you is that focus on these two words that you see there, customer discovery and then customer validation. That's why, doston, there is a word called pivot. What is pivot? A pivot is nothing but a change in strategy without change in the vision. आपका vision वही है. जो भी बड़ा बड़ा आपने सोचा ना वो तो वही है. That vision remains the same. But what changes is the strategy. That's called pivot, which means you discover the customers, you validate with the customers. Once मन में सुकून आ गया, तो ये तो सही जा रहा है. Then you go in terms of creating your customers, build your company, जो भी करना है कर लो. But without this hypothesis plus execution, कहां से पैसा आएगा? नहीं आता है. And now the investors have become much more prudent. 2021, because there was this revenge after COVID, investors were literally putting money into every startup, not even looking at the valuation. 22, 23, 24, 25 सब बदल गया अभी. Investors have also become savvy. They are also very, very cautious. What I'm trying to tell you is hypothesis is an idea that can be tested, which means test the persona of the customer. Who is this customer? What are their habits? What is their socioeconomic classification? Test the problem that they have. Problem सच है क्या? बड़ा है क्या? Test the value proposition that you're giving to them. Test the usability that you're offering to them. Test whether this will grow. Then I think when you talk to the investors, the amount of confidence, the amount of conviction you will have will be unbelievable. So what is startup? Why are we talking so much about this? I already said that higher chances for startups to fail. By fifth year, almost many startups failed. And therefore I use the word execution ke pehle hypothesis hai. But what is the definition of startup? How do you define even a startup? Look at that. Startup is defined as a company designed to grow very quickly. Look at the last two words, very quickly. अरे इतना तुरंत यार, इतना जल्दी यार, नहीं तो startup नहीं है. I'm pretty sure venture center, because they are more into, the deep tech, they will have some patience. But end of the day, once the startup has shown the success, there is a need for the startup, to grow quickly. In fact, Steve Blank, who is called the startup guru, he defined startup as a temporary organization which is designed to search for repeatable and scalable business model. I'll repeat that. Steve Blank, who is called the startup guru, he said startup is defined as a temporary organization. क्या है? Temporary organization. कब भी जा सकता है. Designed to search for repeatable and scalable business model. अगर scale नहीं हुआ, it's not startup. Please understand, अगर scale नहीं हुआ, तो it is not startup. And therefore, we all have to understand that a startup has got limited money, time, resources. And it must be able to survive within this limited time and somehow find that viable business model so that it can scale up. This is the journey of startup. Limited time, limited money, limited resources. But iske andar, somehow, they need to find a viable business model so that they can survive and then they can stabilize and then they can scale up. That's why your startup idea is a hypothesis about why your company will grow very quickly. Those two last words are very important in the world of startup because many don't even understand what a startup is, unfortunately. They think startup is, I've got an idea, so let's begin my journey. Nahi. That startup needs to grow faster, then only uska meaning bhi startup hai. Look at DPIIT. It says within 10 years. A startup within 10 years. The life is there, then it is, startup. Angel funds. My fund is called Angel Fund. I run a fund called Peaceful Progress. It's Angel Venture Capital Fund. We can invest only in DPIIT registered startup, which means less than 10 years. So if the startup was even in 2012 registered, I can't even invest because it is more than 10 years. So let's understand what is a startup scale-up, because both iske baare mein, we were talking. Guys, what is startup? Very important. Unvalidated business model. You have not still validated it. Pata nahi, sahi jayega ki nahi, pata nahi. It's unvalidated. Absolutely true. It's a fact. What about scale-up? Oh, trust me, it's market which is validating this business model can work. What is market? Customers. Whenever we say market, it's all about customers, which means there is repeat, there is stickiness, there is this buying, propensity that is happening from the customers. Customers are excited. And that's how the goodwill, happens. Absolutely true. So whenever we speak about a startup, the business model is yet to be validated. Whenever we speak about scale-up, it means there is a maturity in terms of how that business is tracking. So let's say we have to do an x-axis, y-axis. In the x-axis, we have this unvalidated business model and the market-validated business model. That's your x-axis. Let's take the y-axis. In the y-axis, you have low growth ambition. Probably scale bhi nahi honga. Low growth ambition, scale bhi nahi honga. And the other side of the y-axis, high growth ambition. Itna conviction hai, I am the numero one, and a scalable business model. So let's assume you have the x-axis and the y-axis. You'll have these 4 squares. Sahi baat hai na? You have x-axis, y-axis, you'll have 4 square. Let's try to understand what this 1, 2, 3, 4 are. One to useless hai, guys. Why it is useless? Unvalidated business model. Low growth ambition, scale bhi nahi hoga. Kya fayda hai yaar? Waste hai. So let's forget the 1. Let's try to look at what this 2 is. So what is this 2? Oh, it's a market validated business model, but the ambition is not great. Scale hoega, pata nahi. My dear friends, this is called small business. Unfortunately, the trap that the startups get into is this. They think, there's a huge market. They think their product or service can do so well in that huge market, but unfortunately, scale nahi ho raha hai. Not that they don't have the ambition. It's and or. Scale nahi ho raha hai. Then it becomes a small business. So what is small business? What is this micro business? What is a small business? These are businesses which we call as lifestyle business, because one, ambition बहुत बड़ा नहीं है, नहीं तो scale अपने तरीके से हो रहा है. It's not startup. What is startup? A startup is a company that is defined to grow very quickly. ये very quickly नहीं हो रहा है, scalable नहीं हो रहा है. So what is this 3? This 3, my dear friends, is called startup because it's high growth ambition, very scalable, plus at the moment it is unvalidated in terms of business model. You have to still keep trying, maybe pivot, do the iteration so that you get there. And finally, you get to something called the scale up, because scale up is nothing but high growth, very, very scalable, but more important, market validated. Market kar raha hai, saab, aapka business badhiya hai yaar. So why am I even speaking about this? The problem with capital and risk is this. The risk is very high as you start up because yours is an idea stage, concept stage. Wahan se, with that small ability to execute, you come to a world called startup. From there, you have to grow and then you have to expand, which means the risk, it actually comes down with time and with your ability to scale. Same as the case with investment. पहले जो भी आपको पैसा मिलेगा वो कम ही होगा. It starts small, but probably as you are reducing the risk, the ability to attract the financial partners will be high. What I'm saying is, probably you start with a grant. I'm pretty sure Venture Center is definitely helping you with a lot of these grants. Good way to start. Then think of angels. I'm also an angel investor. Think of guys like us, who could probably be excited about investing in your business. As the sales are picking up, think of the seed funds, the early stage or micro venture capital. Think of the next level of venture capital, the growth capital, venture capital, or the late stage venture capital. And of course, you have the private equity and the IPO, the public markets. What I'm trying to tell you is that please understand, as you begin your journey, you have to realize that the risk is very high. And therefore, the investment that you expect will also not be significant because the risk is high. But as you're able to mitigate, reduce the risk, or trust me, money will come in flow. You'll be surprised. Because if you do well, trust me, money will only come and support your business. That's why at various stages, you've got various names. For example, accelerator, incubator. Venture center is one, and you've got the others. Then there are these angel networks or angels, high net worth individual, or the angel networks. I'm from Chennai, so you've got Chennai angels out there. Or next, the micro VC or the seed level VCs. And the next stage, the venture capital fund, then the private equity. What I'm saying is that, can you be clear in terms of what stage I am in? And therefore, because I am in this stage, who would be the right investor whom I should tap? And how do you begin this journey? It's always pitching, 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 pitching. In fact, today also the idea is that, can you learn something so that you can pitch well? But what is this pitch deck? Ye kya hai? My dear friends, if you get this into your system, you have won. A pitch deck is not some PPT or some PDF. Pitch deck is a compelling and a fundable story. Look at the two words, huh? Compelling, fundable. आपके स्टोरी में दम है क्या? Trust me, guys, when your story is so real, so real, so real, and it can emote with the investors will want to support you. I'm using the word support. I'm not using the word funding, but support means if they start liking what you're doing, money can even come. What I'm trying to tell you is that, please understand, your pitch deck is such a valuable document. It's not some PowerPoint, not some PDF. It's a very, very powerful document because only one simple reason. Look at this statement. Huh? Why can ideas fail? Let's look at the answer. Because people can't see the brilliance of your idea. मेरा आइडिया इतना बढ़िया है, but लोग समझते नहीं. Am I right? Is it right or wrong? Why can ideas fail? क्या है answer? Because people can't see the brilliance of my idea. Guys, that's wrong. Because you were unable to convince people. ताकत किसको होना चाहिए? आपको होना चाहिए in terms of the conviction of your business model. Idea plus execution. And that idea is a hypothesis. It's no more an idea. What I'm trying to tell you is that, please understand, when I speak about the pitch, your PowerPoint or your PDF on the pitch deck, what is it? I need to remind you again, it's a compelling and a fundable story. Why am I even saying this? Please understand, a story is something that we always get connected with. I don't know how many of you remember. I still remember whenever my grandma used to tell me a story, I used to be with rapt attention, वो क्या बोलने वाली है? अगले next क्या होने वाला है? And then I'll ask you questions also. A story is something that always targets us. It targets the head, it targets the heart, it targets the gut. We all have three brains. The head brain, which is a place of reason, we can think. The heart brain, which is the place of emotion. We are all emotive people. We are all called emotional creatures. And then the gut brain, which is the place of instinct. Sometimes we are very instinctive. Investor bhi वैसे ही है ना? Investor thinks from the head, reasoning. He's able to feel from the heart, emote, and there is something called instinct. Your story conveys the why in terms of why you are doing what you are doing. And therefore, don't take your pitch deck lightly. It's a compelling and a fundable story. Why am I harping so much, guys? The reason I'll tell you, I've told the founders a million times, see, you young startups, you lack history of proof because अभी शुरू किया है. कहाँ से proof होगा? Young startups will lack history of proof. But one thing I've seen in all you startups, there is plenty of purpose. कुछ तो करके दिखाना है, वो तो हमको दिखता है यार. When you're able to show us that, why don't you make it realistic in terms of how compelling it is? Why should the investor fund you? Why are you not putting that much effort? And many a times, I come across a pitch deck like this. Do you understand what's there? All gibberish, all jargons. कुछ भी समझ में नहीं आता है. It's like this. Nothing. कुछ भी समझ में नहीं आता है. Guys, how will investment come? How will money come? पैसे में उग रहा है कि नहीं ना? पेट से आ रहा है कि नहीं ना? If your document is clear, you're able to convey the purpose, the why you're doing what you're doing. Trust me, paisa to aana chahiye. So let's spend some time in terms of understanding how do you package your idea, your hypothesis, and then present that to the investor. So let me begin with the very first thing, dosto, is what problem are you solving? What problem are you solving? Very, very important question. Start with a problem. I always tell the startups that a problem well-defined is a problem half solved. I'll repeat that. A problem well-defined is a problem half solved. Which means when you start with the problem, the only request is, can that problem be big, huge? The magic of thinking big, bada bada sochna chahiye. In fact, I always say that when the problem is large, it means that the market will also be large and therefore the customer base will also be large. Larger the customer base, probably the chances of success are many. And therefore, when it comes to the problem, I always tell the startups, find out what is unique about the problem. Is it popular? Is it urgent? Is it frequent? Is it growing? Is it mandatory? Is it expensive? कुछ तो बताओ यार, क्यों a problem इतना बढ़िया है? For you to attack that problem and then come up with a solution. So start with a problem. And in the world of startup, we always say that there are these three commonly used terms. Are you a painkiller? Are you a vitamin? Are you a candy? Obviously, the answer is you got to be a painkiller. What is a painkiller? You solve the problem, you disrupt, you're innovating. What is vitamin? Of course, kuch to acha kar raha hai, but it's only like an ideal situation, not a must. Candy, oh, that's only, a feel-good factor. So why would I look at a vitamin or a candy? I should look at being a painkiller. That's very important. And then comes the question, do I first focus in terms of solving the problem immediately, or should I focus on finding the problem? But dosto, the answer is very, very simple. You have to first find the problem. Problem finding is called doing the right thing. जो सही है वो आप कर रहे हो. First find out the problem. Do the customers really have that problem? वो बड़ा problem है क्या? Is it expensive? Is it mandatory? Is it growing? Is it expensive? Is it urgent? Is it popular? Find out. No? Then you come out with the solution, because of course the solution is important. Problem solving, doing the thing right. I understand. And of course there are various techniques, which are there. In terms of problem finding, there is design thinking. In terms of problem solving, there is Lean Sigma. I'm saying there are so many techniques, but Perla, problem finding. So painkiller, for whom? Who is the hero of the story that you are even communicating? Who is the hero? Is it the investor? Is it you? Who is this hero or shiro? Oh, trust me, आपका customer है. That's the main character. That's the hero or the heroine. That's the hero or the shiro. You are focusing on the customer, who this ideal customer is. What is, making the customer even buy my product? What problem are they facing? Will my product solve that problem? Will my solution help? Oh, so much of, effort and time has to go there. The problem finding is very, very important. And then comes your problem solving. That's why I say a problem well defined is a problem half solved. Can you go deeper, deeper, deeper into the problem and then understand, is it a real problem? But of course, it has to be large. It has to be big so that you have a larger market and therefore a larger customer base. Look at the statement. Startups don't fail because they lack a product. They fail because they lack customers and a profitable, that is viable business model. Look at the traditional approach. What is traditional approach? There is a founder. The founder has got a vision about developing a product. वो product भी develop कर दिया. Entire product develop कर दिया. Then what is the founder doing? The founder, because he has created a business plan, wants to launch the product based on the business plan and is also hiring the sales staff. Not even knowing whether there is a customer. उसके बाद ही वो customer को ढूंढ रहा है. Customer आएगा कि नहीं? Will I have my customers? Traditional approach. No way this can succeed. That's why there are concepts of Lean Startup or Lean Sigma, which says the founder is there. You build something called MVP, a minimum viable product. What is minimum viable product? The focus is on the functionality. The focus is in terms of getting the feedback from the customer. And if you feel that as you're doing it, you're getting the data and the feedback, you feel something has to be done to validate, you will iterate or you will pivot till you get right so that you can hire the right team and then you exactly launch and find the actual customer. This is the model to get success in the market, even to get funding in the market, you don't find customers later. You do your MVP, and then you go about the process of even finding out what feedback I'm getting, from my customer. In fact, I don't know how many of you know this. You have to start with something called proof of concept. Once you're happy with the proof of concept, you go to build a prototype. I'm sure many of you at an early stage would have a prototype. The prototype now needs to become a pilot. You're going to test with the customers so that it becomes a minimum viable product. In the world of startup, we always say that can you get your early customers, which are called as early adopters. There are some customers who would always want to bless you and they would want to try and test it, give the feedback. Find them out. That's the way to succeed. So which means you find the problem, then you come up with an answer, because that answer is your underlying magic. But always remember, you first find the problem and then you think of solving. Example. What example is this? The problem that the startup faced is video files are too large to email. The video files are too large to host. No standardization of the video file format. Videos exist as isolated files. What should the startup do? So this is YouTube, which simply told the customers, oh, aapka problem ye hai kya? I found the problem. Now let me give the solution. Forget about wo kitna large hai, wo kitna, bada hai, or, too large to host. Forget about the standardization. All that is my job. I will do the rest. You simply give me the video file. Go deeper, deeper, deeper to find out what the true problem is. Once you have understood, come up with a solution. That's called your execution tenacity. That's why I said idea nahi, hypothesis, because you have tested that idea, plus your ability to execute. Come up with a solution. Of course, you will fail. Who doesn't fail? What's the guarantee that just because I take this session, no funding hoga? But something to, andar ja raha hai na, something to kahega, that if I make some small changes, probably there are chances that I will succeed. That's the belief system. That's the confidence with which, the startup needs to go. What is the next? Problem aa gaya, you found the answer. Uske baad kya hai? It's credibility. What is credibility, guys, as you're presenting to investor? It's you first. Doston, your startup starts with you. You like it or not, it starts with you. Which means when I say it starts with you, unfortunately, the world of investment, investors like me, investors like us, we always say that we bet on the jockey, not the horse. What is the meaning? We bet on the founder. So the previous discussion I had with you about problem and the answer is called PS fit. It's called problem solution fit. Now I'm speaking to you something called founder market fit. Is that founder right for this market? So when it comes to credibility, doston, it begins with you and then comes the team, because a team is very, very important. I always say that a teamwork makes the dream work. And of course, the word team itself means together everyone achieves more. How capable your team is. But more than capability, guys, one thing I always look at as an investor is how cohesive the team is. Because there will be issues. There will be difficult days. There will be these lows. When the lows are there rather than the highs, how does the team even gel? Is there cooperation? Is there mutual respect? That is how you develop the team, because a teamwork makes the dream work. Somebody told me some time back so beautifully, and I thought that statement was very profound. He said, you don't build a business. I said, excuse me? Should I not build a business? I'm an entrepreneur here. You don't build a business, he said. You build a team, and then the team builds the business. I'll repeat that, doston. He said, you don't build a business, you build a team, and then the team builds the business. That's the power of this word called team. But when can that happen? It can only happen when there is something called vision. Steve Jobs said so beautifully, if you're working on something exciting that you really, 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 really care about, you don't have to be pushed. The vision pulls you. I think one of the important quality, that a team, a founder, co-founders need to have is, are they able to understand the vision, and is the vision understood by everybody? Because if that vision is clear, oh, trust me, it's going to pull you up, much more easily. In fact, I always say that vision without action is just a hallucination. Action without vision, wasted effort, because vision is so important. But vision plus action, oh my goodness, unbeatable combination. When I say action, dosto, the only thing I'm saying is, do you have that execution capability? Can you execute? Do you have that capacity to execute? Then comes this beautiful word called know-how. What is know-how? Know-how definitely is your domain knowledge. Absolutely no doubt in that. Are you strong in the domain, in that segment, in that industry, in that sector? Do you have the real knowledge is very, very important. So that domain knowledge defines how well you can run the startup, how well you're going to motivate your team to run the startup, how well you understand the market, the competition, and therefore the scalability. But in that know-how, let's not miss this word, which is called leadership. Dosto, this leadership skill is very, very important for you to even get the money, because investors are looking up to you in terms of how you're going to face the challenges. When challenges happen, are you fighting or do you have a flight sort of a thinking? Which means, what is leadership? I always say that leadership is making a conscious choice to be the best person you can be. We are looking at you and thinking in our mind, can this person be the best person for that particular startup, whatever he or she is running? And therefore, domain knowledge is important. I am not at all undermining that. But I think this leadership ability is very important. So therefore, the message I'm giving you is, let's say you're good at one aspect of the business in the domain. Try and see, that you, as a leader, you're able to bring other co-founders or other team members, let's say for sales or for marketing or for technology, or let's say even a finance function, which is very, very important. Corporate governance is so important today. Your leadership skill is one thing that, investors will always look up to. And then comes the evidence. The evidence is very important. Evidence in the form of what? The product. Because your product is the most honest and tangible expression of what you're doing. That's why I said it begins with something called the proof of concept, but then a prototype has to happen, then a pilot has to happen, and therefore the MVP, you can say beta, you can say whatever other names are, even minimum marketable product, minimum usable product, jo bhi terminology. But the point is, your product or service, that's the most honest expression of what you are doing. And look at the statement. Building great products or services begins with knowing your users. That's why I liked what Ritesh Agarwal said. He said it is extremely important to build something that 100 people love actually using, rather than 1,000 people simply liking. Building great products or services begins with knowing your users. Do you know who my end customer is? Whom am I selling to? Very, very important, knowing the users. And then comes the market. Market is all about your TAM, SAM, SOM. I'm not going to bore you with this. But what you need to understand is this. You focus on the SOM, which is your serviceable obtainable market. But what we investors are looking at is that SOM, let's say it is 1,000 crore. At least in the next 3 to 5 years, वो 1,000 crore में आपका कितना revenues होने वाला है? So that we understand that, okay, in the next 3 to 5 years, these guys have got this much market share, or at least this much revenues they are able to make. You give us some big, big numbers on TAM, SAM, SOM, but what I want to know as an investor is, in the next 3 to 5 years, within that SOM, what is going to be a revenue for the next 3 to 5 years? And therefore, we always say that TAM, SAM, SOM बहुत अच्छा है सुनने के लिए, but do you have real customers who are even early adopters? These are called as evangelists. Do you even have the early evangelist to ensure that they're able to adopt your product or service and give you the feedback? We investors are super excited to listen to the feedback. And let's say the feedback is also saying that, the product has to be changed, the service has to be changed. We are happy to hear that, because end of the day, if that feedback can do good to the startup, that feedback is worthy, even if you have made a mistake. Who doesn't make a mistake here? There's a beautiful statement, either we win or we learn. There's nothing called mistake. Let's learn from that mistake. That's why there's a word called pivot, iterate. ये गलत हुआ, दूसरा करो यार. Somebody told me again this beautiful statement, life is like a boxing match. Defeat is not declared when you fall down. All of us will fall down. Boxing na, कोई मुक्का दिया तो क्या होगा? Our life is like a boxing match. Defeat is not declared when we fall down. Defeat is declared when we don't get up. That's why there's a counting 1, 2, 3, 4. Defeat is only declared when we don't get up. So it's never a question of how many times we fall. It's always a question of how quickly we get up. What I'm trying to tell you is that get early adopters as customers. Trust me, you'll be able to find the investors because you're sharing the feedback with the investors and the investor is sensible. You need to choose the right investor. If the investor is sensible, they will definitely, support you. So start small. Don't immediately, start your hockey, stick approach on the numbers. Pehले year mein itna aayega. In fact, I always say that start slow, start small, build gradually, build smart. I'll repeat that. Start slow, start small, build gradually, build smart. Then you build. Say that, boss, in the next 3 to 5 years, kitna bada hone wala hai. That's called how you look at the market. And of course, the competition, because you can't be in the red ocean. You have to be, away from the red ocean. Of course, I don't say that everybody can be a blue ocean, and therefore away from the red ocean. And therefore, you even tell where you are. If this is a competitor, where you are. Now, in this chart, what I call as a brand map, you only have 2 ways of showing. One is it less expensive or more expensive? Is it less convenient or more convenient? I hate this chart, guys. As an investor, I hate this chart. I love this chart. Because this chart tells me I am here. How can you compare with the other startups? You have got more than 2 parameters even to show. Now, don't show some 20 parameters as benefits. Limit to less than 10. But then show what are those unique, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, how you differentiate from the other competitors. Competition is very important. Never, ever underestimate the competition. If you want to be above the competition, you have to first observe the competition. And of course, momentum, my favorite word. I'm a pakka chart accountant. And therefore, numbers. I always say that numbers speak. In fact, I say that if you torture data long enough, it can confess to anything. So what is momentum? Nothing but the traction. Investors want to know where are you heading so that they can see the money. But why are investors investing? You think what we are doing some CSR? Nahi, na? So we also want to take the money back. So therefore, we want to look at the money when the money is going to come. So show us, how the business can be scaled up. And therefore, your financial model, your business model is very, very important. In fact, your financial model is your real business plan because it conveys where are the revenues, where are the costs, and therefore, when the profit will come in, monthly split, what's the burn rate, what's the working capital, when will the next capex be required? Arey yaar, sabhi aa jata hai. Now, you will argue with me saying that, sir, wo sab numbers hai, finance hai, only a CA can do. Outsource it na then. हमें तो technical नहीं आता है. I can, never understand, some of the deep tech, that is happening in venture center. But I can understand through a Soma, right? I can request Soma ji, thoda bata do yaar, ye kya hai. In the best ability, for me to understand, I'll at least request her. What I'm saying is that if you don't know this, outsource it. But show the traction. A simple way of paying customers. What's your annual revenue or your monthly recurring revenue? What's the growth? Or even this. This actually is much more detailed, but much more effective. That's why I say sometimes even outsource this. I end with the last term, which is called the ask, and I also end the session with this, the ask. So I started with problem. I said you have to go to the answer. And then comes your credibility. Then you go to the know-how. Know-how is not just about the domain, but also the leadership skill. Then you show us evidence. Have even your video pitch of a product. Have a product demo sometimes. That is real for us. In fact, I always say that showing is better than saying. Well done is better than well said. Show rather than say. Do rather than say that you can achieve it. This product demo is beautiful. And then, of course, look at the market, look at the competition, look at, the traction, what we call as momentum. And then comes the ask, with which I'm going to end. Look at this thing, the ask. So as a startup, what have you accomplished? Let's say you launch your minimum viable product. You have 2,000 weekly active users. You have $3,000 of monthly recurring revenue. You as a founder, you have invested $50,000. The money you want to raise, the ask. What's your ask? You want to raise 500,000 US dollars for 9 months of runway. 9 months के लिए आपको वो पैसा चाहिए. What are you giving? 10% you're giving of the company. From 2,000 weekly users, it'll become 10,000 weekly. From 3,000 monthly, it'll become 15,000 monthly. And then your next objective is to raise something called Series A. Now, I know some of you here will say, sir, मुझे वो valuation समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, sir. कितना, रोकड़ा देना है, dilute करना है, पता नहीं. Keep it simple, ना. Make it a convertible note. You've got something called CCPS, compulsorily convertible preference shares. You've got something called CCD, compulsorily convertible debenture. You discover the valuation later, no? There are investors who will understand. See, I've invested in more than 63 startups, okay? As a fund, I've invested in more than 22 startups. I'm also part of various other funds. Many cases, we simply sign a CCD, CCPS, where there is a floor or a cap or a discovered valuation. We are okay with that. We actually respect that founder much more rather than the founder giving us some valuation which is obnoxious. Bada number, we don't even understand kaise wo honga karke. When you don't know, simple, make it convertible. In this example, once you say, I want the $500,000, also show where the money is going to go. The usage of the money is very important. Your pitch deck is not a PPT, it's not a PDF, it's a compelling and a fundable story. Show us where the money is going to go. You don't know the 10%, हटा दो ना, say discovered valuation. पता नहीं साहब, convertible है. जो भी next round होगा उसमें आपको discount भी दे देंगे. Speak to experts who can help you structure a transaction. It's not that you need to know complete valuation and then only you can become a startup expert. नहीं यार. There are other experts. उनको वो काम करने दो ना. जो भी आपका करना है आप कर लो. So I'm going to end with this problem, answer, credibility, know-how, evidence, the ask. How do you remember this? Simple mnemonic. Pack it into your pocket if you can packet this. Trust me, I think there will be some level of comfort in terms of how we can go about raising the money. I'm not trying to make it so simple for you by saying that itna saral hai. I know fundraising is an art and science. It's never easy. But one thing I know, if I come with a compelling story, a fundable story, it's not an idea but a hypothesis. I'm demonstrating that execution tenacity. There'll be a lot more interest to listen to you. When you're listening from the investor is doing two things, either giving you feedback or वो सोच रहा है, अरे यार कुछ तो है ना इसमें, पैसा डालना है, डालना नहीं डाले. And somehow, if that equation, that chemistry matches, पैसा आ जाएगा. That's your key takeaway, guys. Pack it. On that note, thank you for your time. That's my email ID. If you want, you can note it down, you can always come back to me. But thank you for this wonderful opportunity, and I'm now open to your questions. With your permission, I'll stop sharing so that it's easy for me to look at you.
Wow, thank you so much. That was some storytelling that you have done. I mean, the kind of energy and the kind of narratives you have used, it is wonderful. Some of the things, of course, are known to people, right? The problem solution, the way you have defined them with the conviction and the things, it is really wonderful to hear you. Thank you so much for your talk. I think it's a great talk, first of all. Thank you so much. And yes, the chat box is open for questions.
Yes.
And requesting everybody to put together your questions here in the chat box. I can already see some, and maybe let me just, define them for you a little bit, like what they're exactly trying to say here.
Sure.
So, say for example, the question that somebody has, and I also wanted to understand from HSH's point of view as well, that as a beginner, how do you really understand the market about your idea, and how do you really know the scalability potential of your idea, right? What are the ways by which you can do that?
Beautiful.
And
so Subhashi,
I just wanted to add one point to that, especially the ones that we are supporting, the science and engineering based ones. Sometimes, the gestation period in order to know the data and all takes little time. So, what are your thoughts on those?
So first of all, it's a very, very beautiful question. So, I should really, thank Subhashi for even raising such a beautiful question. I think it depends in terms of, first of all, as Soma, you rightly said, what is the startup that I'm getting into? For example, if it's a very deep tech, a deep science, I think what you need to do is you need to find your own cluster of this early adopters or customers, even to get the feedback. I always tell the startups that you have your own inner circle. All of us have our inner circle. हमारे दोस्तों होते हैं. I think you should shamelessly, even go about and say that ऐसा मेरा idea है. What you're thinking. Don't even worry about what feedback you're receiving. Have a very, very open ears. Listen in terms of what you're hearing. Trust me, if you are a real founder who want to do something about, what you believe that you're cut out for, trust me, something will work inside for you to, realize which is the right sort of customer segments that I need to target. I'll give an example. We were working on a customer which is into the electric vehicle. And electric vehicle today has become a very common name, unfortunately, especially in the two-wheeler segment. And now they were getting into something called the B2B. And with a lot of pride, they were telling me, that this B2B segment is something, where we want to be. But then I told them, that some of the investment that we have done is also into B2B. They said, no, sir, I think I'm not conveyed to you what is, the message I'm giving. Sir, I want to get into tier 2, tier 3. I said, okay. But how will you, sell your vehicle to a tier 2, tier 3? No, sir, I think I've not explained to you properly. Let me explain again. Sir, मेरे गाड़ी में जो carrier जो होता है, I can actually do various modules of that, which means I can create micro entrepreneurs. So what I'm trying to tell you, Subhashri, is that I think if you're listening to the questions that is coming from, the people whom you're asking or you're showing, trust me, you become better. Here is a guy who could not convey to me clearly saying that, oh, वो गाड़ी जो उसको करना था, that's what meant for micro entrepreneurs. Because his only focus was not electric vehicle. His focus was something to ensure that there is a benefit given to the environment and therefore green. But more importantly, how can I create that micro entrepreneurship? This company is called Revamp Moto, Nasik based, 3 founders, amazing guys. And trust me, they got in business, from another, sort of biggie. And today, their turnover is growing. What I'm trying to tell you is that as a beginner, you will not be able to convey, what you want to do much more clearly. And therefore, you're not clear about your market also. To get clarity, please talk. Shamelessly talk to people. Now, if it is pure science, if it is deep science, if it is deep tech, I know it is tough, but then you've got some of the best of the faculty or the best of the mentors, best of the advisors, or even the fellow, sort of your startup founders. Talk to them. The only thing I'm telling you is talk to them, but then have the ability to listen more. Someone again said beautifully, you have 1 more but 2 years. Speak for some time, but then have so much of time, even to listen. Trust me, if you are that founder who is cut out to do something different, trust me, the existence will conspire and help you understand what market you should tap, how you should get your idea, pivoted so that that idea becomes a hypothesis and therefore it becomes an execution. I would have told you an answer which should have been much more, broader, but trust me, that's the only way, you're going to get to where you want to go.
Chandrashekar, so I just wanted to request, would you also talk a little bit about the Peaceful Progress Fund and exactly, so that people can also know about that?
Yes. So our fund is just closer to 3 years. We started investing from May 2022. There are 4 general partners, including myself. It's a 50 crore size fund, so not a big fund, but we have co-investment as a thesis. So most of the investments that we receive, are from other venture capital firms or from angel networks. And what we do is that we also, review the entire deck. We go through our own internal due diligence, but our focus is on technology, consumer, mobility. So when I say technology, it is any form of technology. जो मुझे समझ में आता है, that's only plain vanilla technology, but then there is Srinivasan in our team, who can understand deep tech. So what I'm saying is that any form of a tech, we're okay, to look at it. Consumer could be B2B, B2B2C, B2C, D2C, any segment, we are okay with that. And the third is mobility, which is your electric vehicle, drones, and then space technology in our parlance. We have one more category. We call it as anything disruptive, which means we want to fit anything and everything into our bucket if we find that exciting. So that's how we've been running this fund. Our thesis is mostly we want to invest in revenue generating startups. That doesn't mean that we will not invest in pre-revenue. Revamp Moto is one example. Liger Mobility is another example. We also invested in a consumer business called Neopop. That's another example. So definitely we look at pre-revenue. Again, I said, what are you showing us? Is it compelling? Is it fundable? Are you giving us that conviction? As of now, we have done 22 investments. Our website is peacefulprogress.in, and you can see all the details out there.
Okay, thank you so much. There's another question which is very interesting, and I have seen many investors actually asking that when they're putting together an ask, right, the investor immediate question is, why are you asking only this much money? If I give you double than that, can you reach market faster, So how do you really define your ask and how do you really present it and how do you get there? Yeah.
So there are 2 answers to that. One is, I think you have not approached the right investor, because let's say you have approached a bada investor. The first thing in the mind is, oh guys, my minimum ticket is 2 million. This guy is asking me 1 million. So the investor in his mind is not asking you that just to see, whether more money can lead to a greater growth. First of all, the ticket size itself is an issue. because the fund size is bigger and therefore a 2 million is sort of the normal size. The question why, whether 2 million can do the magic comes is probably you have not shown clearly the usage. For example, when you show the usage and let's say, the usage is more tilted towards marketing, maybe the investor is getting the message that, okay, with this much of marketing, if the scale can happen here, if I double the marketing, can the scale also, go much more bigger? So I think how you present the usage of the funds will also trigger the thought in the minds of the investor in terms of, where you're going to scale up, and therefore be very, very clear in terms of how detailed you can be on the usage of funds. And that's why you got to split it monthly. Let's say it's marketing money. Don't just say marketing money. Come up with a marketing plan. वो इतना काम करना है क्या? हाँ करना है. The more detail you go, trust me, the investor gets significant confidence, because I think many of us are forgetting that why we want to work for a corporate. We work for a corporate because there is something called systems, process, some rules, some regulation. I'm not saying they're 100% perfect, but there is something, that makes it work. And that's why the discipline comes even to scale up. In a startup, unfortunately, the mindset is that पैसा आ जाएगा, कहीं से तो उठा लेंगे, इतना VC कम्युनिटी है ना, इतना एंजल्स है ना, कहीं से तो आ जाएगा. नहीं आता है, अभी तो नहीं आता है, शायद पहले आया होगा. I think if you have this corporate mindset to say that I'm going to have this discipline of even splitting my requirement into months, explaining, those buckets properly or those pies properly, then probably, you will be able to convince the investor why you need that money, because you know the runway also. Nahi, sir, this will last me for the next 10 months. I'll start my fundraise round, 3 months before that, and therefore I'll go with the next fundraise later. But I also want to be conscious about my valuation, because I know if you put more money, you'll also negotiate, in terms of better valuation. Have that courage even to say that. Everybody knows investors will push you to get a better equity. Therefore, this valuation discussion will always be on.
Well, I think we are almost close to 4, and I don't want to take more of your time because in the middle of the session, but I'll just end with one last question that we have from the participant. And before that, I have shared a feedback link. Request everyone to share your feedback. I'm sure all of you found this very useful, but we wish to know what more you wish to hear, or if you have any further question. The last question I just wanted to ask you, like investors type, right? Strategic investor. How can one think differently, prepare differently, and what is the right time to approach a strategic investor? Is it supposed to be there at the early stage, or what your thoughts are on that?
Beautiful question, because since, I'm also an entrepreneur, and one of the roles that I do is raise funds, for MSMEs and startups, this strategics become very important to us. So if you have to approach a strategic, the first thing I tell the startup founder, or let's say the MSME, is that please understand there's going to be something called the shareholder agreement. In the shareholder agreement, you need to be very clear in terms of what sort of domain you want to hold, what sort of rights, you want to let go. Because as a founder, you may think that you can do it all, you just need the money. Strategics is not the answer then. A strategic is very, very relevant as an investor, because you know that there is some domain strength that the strategic investor brings on table. I'll give an example. Bellatrix, we raised money from BASF. BASF is a big German major. And when we spoke to BASF, BASF said we will evaluate and then we'll ask our corporate VC arm, to put the money into that particular startup. Why did BASF even want to invest? Because they believe that in the world of this green energy, they also, were doing their own research, and they saw that Bellatrix, which was getting into this green fuel, is a great fit for them. We had to speak to the founder and even tell them that BASF will take much more role in terms of the technical domain function also. So please understand, sales and distribution, you'll have to focus on without ensuring that there's too much of competition with BASF. But at the same time, some of the technicalities, BASF is going to interfere a lot. If you're willing for that, then take the money. What I'm trying to tell you in a very simple term is, if you're looking for strategic, you need to know which rights you want to lead, which rights you need to give up, because those rights and obligations is something that equation has to be right. If you ask me personally, strategic can help you scale up much more faster. And trust me, at one point of time, if you want to say that, okay, let the strategic buy the business, be ready for that also, because that's one of the intentions which strategic will always have. The world of FMCG, who invest into the startups, at one point, they will want to acquire that startup. So that is something, that you need to be mindful of.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing such insightful responses. And I think I will not hold you much longer than this now. Once again, thank you so much for spending your time. And I think it was a great session. Thanks a lot. Look forward to interacting with you, and then we'll connect back again at some point of time. Thanks a lot.
Grateful to each one of you. I have a huge respect for each founder out here. So all the very best. And thank you once again, Soma. Thanks to Venture Center for giving this opportunity. Thank you once again. Bye for now.
Our pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We'll close the session here, but I request you to please share your feedback that I have posted on the chat box, because this will help us to bring more such speakers and probably able to address any queries or any other important topics that you wish to hear on such talks. Okay. Thank you so much for attending today's talk and look forward to meeting you again in the next talk. Thanks a lot.
फोन आता है, we do patents, ये करते हैं, वो करते हैं.
Thank you all for joining. We are closing the meeting. The links, it will request you to copy and share the feedback before you leave the meeting, right? Thank you so much.